Part 2 is Stallone's remake of the Vietnam War. The original war, you'll recall, was a bloodthirsty multi-billion-dollar epic which came in way over schedule and way over budget and was highly unpopular with the American public. Stallone's remake is mercifully shorter, though equally bloodthirsty, and on the basis of cost per minute probably just as expensive. But where Stallone was cleverer than the US government was in giving his war a happy ending. America, in the person of Rambo, wins. The film was released in America some 3 months ago and immediately broke box office records. Already it's grossed more than $145 million. In the wake of this, a phenomenon called Rambo Mania has developed, with the muscle-bound warrior becoming America's latest pop hero. As Tom Brooke reports from New York, the release of the picture was timed to have the maximum possible impact.
Sylvester Stallone is back as Rambo.
The Vietnam War is the only war America has failed to win. When Rambo was released, Americans were only too well aware of that painful reality, as the country was marking the 10th anniversary of its withdrawal from Vietnam. Along came Rambo, a pop hero who some psychologists argue has enabled Americans to mentally rewrite history, to deny the reality of failed military might in Vietnam.
Rambo is kind of a super soldier, but more than being just a man, he represents the entire fighting force. He's kind of a character that's bigger than life.
He's America's hero. It's a good feeling being #1.
Rambo's success in America was undoubtedly aided by endorsement of sorts from the country's commander-in-chief, Ronald Reagan. On the eve of the release of the American TWA hostages held in Lebanon, he quoted Rambo by name in a microphone test.
Boy, after seeing Rambo last night, I know what to do the next time this happens.
The resulting publicity of this presidential remark is estimated to have added $50 million in American box office takings. Arthur Egendorf, a Vietnam War veteran, psychologist, and author of a new book on the trauma of Vietnam, says it isn't just America's experience in the war which explains Rambo's popularity.
That movie's an adolescent fantasy tale, a fairy tale. And it's not just people who are chronologically adolescent that love a fairy tale of an adolescent variety. It's adolescent in the sense that it's got a hero who was done wrong to. He's basically a good guy. He wants to, make things right and wants to have his comeuppance in the world. And a lot of people just love that sense of the downtrodden loner, having his say and really having an impact.
Sylvester Stallone, who didn't fight in Vietnam because he says he failed the military's physical examination twice because of an ear condition, had a big personal stake in Rambo. Not only did he conceive the film and co-write the script, but more importantly, he felt he had a lot in common with the Rambo character he plays.
Well, I think we have a belief that if there's a great injustice perpetrated on myself or the character, he'll do everything in his means to try to rectify it, and that usually means going against establishment or going against a known fear or even an unknown fear.
Action!
Stallone shot the film in Mexico. He trained for the part for 8 months, spending 5 hours a day building up his body. Undoubtedly, part of Rambo's appeal lies in the attraction of him as a physical specimen cavorting through the jungle.
Well, I think it's not only his physical appearance that does a lot, but the movie is infused with a mentality that could only be concocted by somebody who was not there, who afterwards wished he had been in some way, and is speaking mainly not to veterans, but to the mass of people who've missed out on whatever it is that they think that war was.
The film is doing surprisingly well in places like Israel, Lebanon, and South Africa. What do you think the reasons for that are?
There you have a lot of this populism and this sense of wanting the simple, straightforward physical solution to real complex issues. And those places in particular are real hotbeds of complexity and strong, frustrations among people who want to just, sweep the thing aside, get the job done, do it the old-fashioned way, and forget about it.
No one is quite sure how long the current wave of Rambomania will last in America. But whether you like it or not, Rambo will be back. Rambo First Blood Part 3 is set for release in America for the beginning of 1987. As Sylvester Stallone puts it, Rambo is, quite simply, a war machine that can't be turned off.
Ah, look at him there, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger's little brother. Now, I suppose one can see Rambo's relevance to America and even other war-afflicted countries like the Lebanon. What's harder to figure out is why such brutal and mindless claptrap seems to be equally popular here. In its first 2 weeks, it grossed nearly £3.5 million, which is even better than E.T. did. Why then have British audiences been flocking to see it?
I've heard it's extremely violent, and being a social worker, I like something really escapist to come and see.
Personally, I quite like Sylvester Stallone because I think he's such a bad actor that I always find his films entertaining.
Like, I've seen First Blood, and I think it was brilliant, you know. And I've seen Rocky 1, 2, and 3. You know. I think Sylvester Stallone's a brilliant actor.
I think they like the blood and thunder, the all action. We even had a few people we didn't want the outgoing crowd to clash with the people coming in. We put them out the exit, and immediately they joined the queue, bought a ticket for the next show.
All right, but why do we want to see a film about a war we had nothing to do with?
We were nothing to do with cowboys and Indians. It didn't matter. It's a pleasant action film. It's perfectly pleasant. There's nothing wrong with it. You see, we are very short on the screen today of virile heroes. And that's why I think he gets so much attention, because he doesn't have much competition in that area.
So why did the British Safety Council try to ban Rambo before it even opened?
This film, Rambo, is one of the great marketing exercises of the last 10 years. There are now Rambo serrated edge killer knife clubs where they go and they throw knives. There are throwing knife clubs. There are dart gun clubs. There are semi-automatic gun clubs where they go out and practice shooting guns. All of this will in turn, as is already happening in England, by the way, will in turn manifest itself in acts of violence which are preventable.
Well, you've had people with imitation ammunition belts, but no problems, no real problems.
It's always very healthy when a film encourages early on a lot of people to go who wouldn't normally go, because the cinema-going habit in England has died completely. You practically have to set fire to their houses to get them out. And when they go to the cinema and enjoy it, as they obviously are doing, it may well encourage them to go again if they can fight through the filth and the grime.
For our country to love us as much as we love it. That's what I want.
One of the major distributors told me the other day, and I know this is true, that only 4 films out of 40 that they released last year covered their cost of advertising and prints in England. So you have to have a few blockbusters to cover all these great intellectual bores that are going out and losing money.
I thought the plot was very feeble, and I thought it was quite insulting. If I'd been an American with a Vietnam vet in the family, I would have been quite insulted to see Sylvester Stallone making his deep little message at the end and all that.
It's amazing that people paying to go and see these things. I think it's rather disturbing, really.
It's just pathetic. The acting was absolutely pathetic.
It's not what it seems. It's not what people say, really.
It's not true. It's not true at all.
Well, I thought it was the Americans doing what they usually do with their films, and that is when they've got a winner, they try it for another time, and then another time, and then another time. The second one wasn't as good as the first one, I'm afraid, but they were both great entertainment, and I look forward to the third one.
What has happened?
He sold out. Bastard.
Don't go, Nan. Don't go, Nan.
講地，你一得嚟尾下。
despite what we've just seen, I think that the people who wanted to ban Rambo because of its violence are people who don't go to the pictures very often. Certainly Rambo is violent, but that's the way movies are these days. And besides, among the many reasons to deplore the film, violence comes pretty low. I mean, the fact that it's arrant nonsense shouldn't be overlooked for a start. And it's dangerous nonsense too. As Rambo goes off to release American prisoners of war in Vietnam, the thrust of the picture is to arouse hatred and contempt both for the Russians and the Vietnamese, who are universally depicted as viciously sadistic and stupid. Am I alone in wondering whether America can ever hope to be at peace with anyone if its youth is being fed in the cinema on this kind of aggressive xenophobia? It's no good telling me that Rambo is only an animated cartoon. Animated cartoons are long-established weapons of propaganda. The result of the film is a celebration of the American fighting man über alles. If the Third Reich had survived the Second World War, I dare say the Nazis would be making similar movies today. As for Mr. Stallone, well, he's now so muscular that when he walks, his arms don't even touch his sides. If he wants to scratch his leg, I imagine he has to hire someone to do it. Apart from that, we're told that he learnt Vietnamese in order to play the role, and on this evidence he's about as fluent in that tongue as he is in English, with a command of very nearly a dozen words in each language. In action, yes, he's impressive, and the action scenes, I must admit, are exciting as well as ludicrous, but in the dialogue scenes he looks like a graduate of the Mogadon School of Acting, half-closed eyes, half-closed lips, and words escaping lethargically down his chin. So let's see him in action instead. Vietnamese officer must have been filled entirely with gas. By the way, Sylvester Stallone's other famous creation, Rocky, the punchy pugilist, will be seen in London just before Christmas in Rocky IV, in which the villainous enemy is yet another Russian. I reckon he's planning to declare war all by himself. Meanwhile, Rambo, which is showing at 325 cinemas, is currently the most successful film around the country. Which brings me to a new feature of this series. In future weeks, just to keep you up to date with the popularity or otherwise of the current movies, we'll bring you lists of the top 10 films in America and on video. But for the moment, here are the 10 most popular pictures now on in London.